Today I'm going to be tearing into a 1979 Honda ATC110 motor. This is the three-wheeler, the most dangerous machine on earth. We're going to be tearing into that motor today. So, dual range, we're going to tear into that. We've got the recoil pull starter here with our charging system underneath. We've got our clutches on the right-hand side if you're sitting on the three-wheeler. We're going to go through the top end, our CDI components up top here. I'm going to show you how to adjust those valves. Please, at this time, hit the subscribe button on the channel. Go ahead and give us a thumbs up. Appreciate you guys watching. This time, we're going to tear into this motor. So, thanks for all you guys do. All right, tearing into this motor here, the first thing we're going to do is get into the top end. We're going to go ahead and remove these 4 nuts off of the top here. This is your top motor mount, and you can see there we've got a chunk taken out of this one. Go ahead and remove it. 14 millimeter socket here. We'll go ahead and get that turned in the right direction. All right, we've got all 4 of those nuts off there. Now what you can do is just take and pull this off. There are brass washers underneath of those nuts, so if we're trying not to lose those, let's take those off at this time. You can grab a rubber mallet here and just tap on the top here. That'll allow you to pull that off. Underneath of this cap here is your rockers. Now, this cover really, to me, is quite pointless. Not 100% sure why they put that on there, and a lot of times, to be honest, that entire cylinder head there is completely enclosed. On this one, you just have another gasket spot that could potentially leak. Again, this is a motor mount area, so maybe that is why they do that, just to allow you to replace this if you need to. These studs go all the way clear down into that bottom end there. At this point now, we're going to take the head off, but we're going to get into the CDI box here. This is a CDI ignition, is what some people call it. There's about 15 different names for it. All of them are probably correct, so whatever you want to call it is fine. Doohickey, I think, is what I've seen some people call it. Spark assembly. Little black cover with electrical components. I've seen that somewhere, so really whatever you want to call it is fine. 2 Phillips screws to remove here to pull this off, and then it's just going to pull right off of there. Another gasket here. You want to make sure and replace this. If you're rebuilding this motor and you order a complete gasket kit, gaskets like this should come with your gasket kit. If they don't, let me know and I will file a lawsuit against those companies. Go ahead and remove these screws on the side here. There's going to be 2 Phillips, and that is going to allow this entire plate to be removed here. And I'll maybe throw in a quick side shot picture for you so you know what this looks like from the side there as opposed to from the top. But pull 2 screws off. They're the larger 2 screws on the outside, and that's going to loosen up this plate, allow you to remove it just like this. You've got a little rubber plug here that's going to seal up that top plate where that wire goes in. We'll go ahead and remove that. This actually goes through the cylinder, so I'm not sure if they ended up building that cylinder around this or if they shoved it through after the fact, but it is fairly difficult to pull out of here. You can use a pick or a screwdriver to help pull it out of there, but I really don't want to damage the end of that plug there or pull it off, so I may work on that here in a bit. Next thing we're going to do, pull this cover off here. So we've got 3 bolts around the outside there. How I remove those is grab an impact driver like this. If you don't have one of these, I would suggest getting one of these tools. I'll put a link below. And take and hit it like that. Normally, if you've got something to push up against, I want to get this to where you guys can see me doing this. So I'm just going to throw my motor around like that a little bit. But otherwise, if you have something behind here or somebody to hold it, just so it doesn't bounce like this is doing, it makes it a lot easier. But all it takes is 3 taps on there, and you're able to pull these bolts out of here. Go ahead and pull those 3. I would not suggest just grabbing a screwdriver and trying turning those off. They are fairly difficult to do that. It's actually not even the right size bit for these bolts. And now we can take and tap this off. And we're going to have to remove this 10 millimeter bolt here to get this the rest of the way off. So grab our impact here, 10 millimeter socket. Remove that. Make sure you're turning that the right direction, counterclockwise. Now you're going to be able to pull all that off. You're actually pulling it right off of your camshaft there. So before you get too much farther, remember to pull. There's a little pin. You got to have little pliers to do this. You can take and pull that pin out. Very, very small. You can probably barely even see it in this video. But that, when you go to pull this cover off of there, this could potentially damage that seal that's right there. So make sure you pull that. Make sure you keep that handy because you're going to want to put that back in there. That is what holds this piece in place there. Otherwise, that's just going to spin with the camshaft. Now we're able to grab our rubber mallet again and tap that right off of there. Another gasket there. You're going to be loaded up with gaskets by the time we're done here. So make sure you get all these gaskets replaced. Make sure they're all in good condition when you're going back together. This is literally the worst design in the world. Why would you even run this through your cylinder like this? 41 years ago. This year is 2020. It was built in 79. 41, yeah, I believe that's correct. So there's your point system there. I'll go through on a separate video how to replace, how to adjust, and how to determine if these are good or bad. I'll save that for another video. Make sure you subscribe to our channel, hit the notification bell, because you will want to be notified when we post that video. It's going to be a good one, guarantee it. We've got our intake valves here, our exhaust valves here. To adjust those valves, we've done a separate video on that. You don't actually have to pull the motor to adjust those valves. I kind of forget to mention that on a lot of my videos, and people will start removing their entire engine just to change a spark plug. Most of the time, I'm pulling these engines out because I'm needing to do a greater service to them, not just replace a spark plug. I have the motor out, I tell people where the spark plug is. They feel like they need to pull their engine to replace the spark plug. Do not pull the engine to replace the spark plug or adjust the valves. No need for that. Another gasket here. Make sure that gets replaced. You're going to hear me say that a lot. Here's your spark plug. Don't pull your engine out. Okay, next thing I'm going to do, your camshaft you can see is a little wobbly here. That is perfectly fine. Those electrical components that we just moved, or the electrical doohickey, is actually holding this cam in place. It will not allow it to shift back and forth like this. So don't you worry. If you get to this point and you're like, oh my goodness, my cam is about ready to fly out of my motor. It's probably not going to. Although this is a 1979, anything is possible. 10 millimeter. To remove this bolt here, what this does is a cam chain tensioner bolt. And I don't even really know how this works, although I do know that that cam chain will loosen up when I remove that. So when we get down in here, I guess I'll show you exactly how that works. But at this point, not a clue. Grab your 10 millimeter socket here. Remove the two 10 millimeter bolts that are holding this camshaft sprocket on. So we've got those removed. At this point, we can remove the entire cam out of our cylinder head. So that is the camshaft. Our camshaft sprocket is still hooked up to the chain, still kind of in the middle of this here. I don't know if I'm going to be able to remove this cam sprocket at this point. Bear with me. We might have to remove the head to remove this. My goodness, it is really close. At this point, you grab an angle grinder and do some cutting. You should be able to get this sprocket out of here. So if you don't want to do that, grab a plastic mallet or a rubber mallet, tap on your head there, your ATC head, not your actual head. Find a spot that you're not going to damage any fins. The Joker before me decided to damage that fin there. Probably not going to cause any Probably not going to cause any major motor damage, but it does look a little trashy to have fins broke off. Okay, a couple more times with the mallet there. Go ahead and pull that cylinder head all the way off just like that. There is your exhaust valve. There's your intake. We're dumping oil all over because there is oil up in this head. That is a good thing. If there's not, probably should be a little concerned. Probably wasn't getting enough lubrication up here, and you probably have some worn parts. But rockers here, again, intake, exhaust on this side. Spark plug here. You don't have to pull your head to remove this spark plug. Keep that in mind. We'll set that aside. We're going to clean that up. That's awful dirty. I have got a roller down here. So this bolt went in to a roller. I'm going to try to get this removed for you. There we go. This bolt went into a roller here. and that put some pressure on that cam chain. So it went and sat down in here farther, kind of spread that cam chain out a little bit. So by removing that, it allowed us to have a little bit more slack in that cam chain. We're gonna set that aside there. All right, once we tap that cylinder off a number of times, we'll be able to get our fingers underneath of it, and then we can pry that cylinder all the way up. And sometimes what happens, unfortunately, with these older machines is these studs here get rusty and corroded, and then you have a hard time pulling this all the way up. If your cylinder and your piston are froze up, and that does happen sometimes, sometimes that's what will give you the grief in trying to pull these out. We'll go ahead and smack that one more time, pull this cylinder off of there. We'll inspect this cylinder really good, make sure those walls are in good condition. I'll show you how to measure that in a separate video. We'll also inspect that piston. A lot of times when you pull a cylinder off like this motor here, we didn't ever see it running. We were told it needed rebuilt, but it wasn't stuck. You can see it'll turn over very, very easily. There's no major damage to the piston. I actually don't even see any scoring on the cylinder walls there. So you can take and turn it over at this time, watch your finger. Otherwise you may get it taken off there if you stick it in that piston pinhole there. But you also want to take this chain, make sure you hang on to it. Don't just turn this crank over and let this chain get bound up down in there. You could potentially break part of your crankcase, or probably a guide or a roller down there if you get that jammed up in there. So now getting into the charging system, we're gonna get into this left-hand side when you're sitting on this three-wheeler. I know there's a lot of people that are gonna have problems with the charging system on these, and a lot of you are watching this video to get that charging information, and I'm gonna show you that at this time. Okay. Get it propped up here so you're able to see a little bit easier. I'm gonna wipe down our workplace. That way you've got stuff clean and looking fresh.